some roster news for the New Orleans Saints. Mike Triplett tweeted, source confirms Saints defensive end Noah Spence tore his ACL while training away from the team. Disappointing news for the fifth-year vet. Another wrinkle to this unconventional offseason. And the aforementioned Mike Triplett joins us now on AFR. Mike, thanks for the time, man. How are you?
Doing great. How you doing, Matt?
Doing really well. We appreciate you as always. Reaction to the Noah Spence news from a sense of what that means for the Saints on the field?
Well, you had to consider him a roster bubble guy because they signed him after he got cut by two other teams last December, and he was inactive for all four games when he was in New Orleans. But it was actually sort of an intriguing position where somebody could break through. I listed that as one of their top three needs this offseason, and they didn't really address it in a meaningful way. So, I think he could have earned a roster spot. And, we obviously saw him have a great rookie season in Tampa Bay. So I was curious if there was some untapped potential there. So it's definitely disappointing from that standpoint. But, it's not like we were penciling him in for 30 snaps a game.
That's a guy I know that they liked in the draft back in 2016. Is when you look at edge rusher, it obviously you have Cam Jordan on one side, and then the hope is Marcus Davenport emerges. But you just said it there, Mike. That's one of the questions this offseason. So realistically, what are they doing? What are their options?
Well, look, if everybody's healthy, it's a fine top three with Marcus Davenport as your number two and Trey Hendrickson as your number three. But unfortunately, health has become a big question mark for Marcus Davenport. And it's a position where you can rotate guys in and out. I mean, you can have three or four. We just saw the Vikings in that playoff loss, in the Saints playoff loss, move their stud defensive ends inside to tackle and throw the Saints off. I don't think you can collect enough pass rushers in the league, and it's a kind of a scary position for the Saints to be thin at. But obviously, if Marcus Davenport lives up to his potential and stays healthy, it's a good 1-2 punch.
Mike, do they have options in free agency, or would it be unprecedented to wait until camp starts and look at roster cuts potentially and find someone on I hate to say it this way, but like on the scrap heap?
Yeah. Well, look, didn't they sign Paul Kruger once very, very late in training camp, and he didn't have a terrific season with the Saints, but, that was an example, and certainly guys that get cut from other teams. There's two studs out there right now in Jadeveon Clowney and Everson Griffin. I'd be stunned if they could get in the price range, especially for Clowney. I just never say never with the Saints. So, some teams going to be adding good defensive ends still, but no, look, with the Saints' current salary cap situation, I think it would be very hard to think there are major changes still to come with this roster. But the good news is I think most analysts agree they might have the deepest, most talented roster in the league as is right now.
Mike Triplett is with us. He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett, of course, ESPN.com if you want to go read his stuff there. The other interesting news today is that James Hurst has apparently signed with the New Orleans Saints. His agent tweeted that earlier today. What do you know about Hurst and how he might fit in New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a guy who started 44 games in his career, and he started him at guard, right tackle, and left tackle. So, he will have to compete for that job. That's going to be when we start doing our projected 53-man rosters, those backup offensive line spots are going to be – we know the starting five, but the backups are going to be tough to discern. I mean, he'll be competing with the likes of, Will Clapp and Nick Easton and maybe the front runner for a backup tackle job, since those guys are more guard center types. But certainly increasing their options and obviously probably getting them at I'm assuming the veteran minimum at this point.
Mike, I want to pry a little deeper there on the offensive line, and I might even get your thoughts on how you think that the 7 to 9 guys they keep may look. But specifically with Hurst, is this a guy that reminds you of another player that the Saints have plucked for versatile depth at that position?
Well, he plays everything but center, so I can't bring up the Senio Kelemete comparison because he plays every position.
Right.
But look, a guy who plays guard, the backup. So here's what happens. I think we're going to get more active offensive linemen this year in the NFL because of that increased roster space. And I should know this rule by heart, but I think it specifically addresses using the extra one on an offensive lineman or something along those lines. But it's a premium to have a guy who can fill in at multiple spots. I mean, we've seen Will Clapp play tackle for them because he was the backup, and that's where a guy got hurt. And sometimes Andrew Pete slides over to tackle, and the guy goes in at guard. And it's almost essential that if you're going to be a backup offensive lineman in the NFL who wants to be active on game days, you have to play more than one position.
He's Mike Triplett. When you look at the line battles for the position battles, we know the Saints starting 5 in whatever order is set. By the way, do you think Ruiz is going to start game 1 at center?
I'm like 55% sure that he's a center, and they move McCoy to guard, and I think that probably would be plan A. But not having a full offseason complicates that. I mean, it's hard not to go with the guy who played center and called all the plays and the signals just last year. I think the long-term plan is Ruiz at center and McCoy at guard, but I wouldn't bet $1 on it on what's going to happen in week 1.
Okay, so, but let's assume then if it's Ruiz at center, McCoy at guard, or McCoy at center, Nick Easton at guard, I think that's a safe assumption. We know who the first 6 are. Is that fair?
Well, I would say Easton is likely to make the team, and cutting Larry Warford made that even more likely, but I think he's going to have to compete for it because we're going to eventually run out of spots here.
So that's interesting. So just do this exercise with me. So we know that the first 5 who we mentioned, if you throw Easton out of the mix, I would assume that you'd look at Easton at 6 as a number 6. I think Hurst is 7. And then you have that mix of Will Clapp, Cam Tom, Patrick Omame. I'm sure there's other people I'm leaving out here, but where does it really start to get – where does the question really start to come into focus as to who is going to make the roster at offensive line and who might be on the bubble?
I mean, frankly, it might be everybody you just listed for that reason. I mean, Omame's kind of NFL starting history kind of looks a lot like Hurst. Mm-hmm. And Omame was a bubble player when he got to the Saints. I mean, unfortunately, that's what happens to these guys in the pros. I would have told you Cameron Tom, I thought had a chance to win the starting center job, and he ended up with an injury that landed him on injured reserve, but he's become a bubble player. Ethan Greenidge is a guy that they kept around all last year, even though he didn't play because they love his potential at tackle. So, look, I mean, maybe a maximum of 10 guys make the roster, maybe a minimum of 8. These are going to be some of the tightest battles in camp now that they've added the depth they have.
I think last year they kept 9 maybe on their 53, so it's right on the number, right there between 8 and 10, whatever it may be. Before I let you go, I know earlier today as well that ESPN.com published their FPI projections for the season. The Saints at 10.5. All right, you kind of laughed a little. So what was that about? What was your reaction?
No, I didn't laugh. I said, I didn't laugh. I probably just mumbled.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, like, if you saw it and you had, like, a knee-jerk reaction to it, because they put out Super Bowl odds, and the Saints have the third best odds there. And they also put out, like, likely for the 7th seed in both the NFC and the AFC. Did anything, be it a team's projected win total or Super Bowl odds or division races, did anything off the top of your head just jump out at you as maybe a surprise?
Well, no, there were no surprises high end. Was it Dallas that was kind of higher than maybe some people expect? But I mean, Dallas is sort of the computer's dream. I mean, if you add up the talent they have there. But what really didn't surprise me, and this was just giving it a first glance, I think they said the Chiefs had the best odds to go to the Super Bowl, right. And then the Saints just edged out the Niners, but it was like 13% to 12%. It's like, Saints have the best chance to go to the Super Bowl at 13%. Because, I mean, that's the NFC. I can't imagine what a Vegas betting board looks like. You could make a case for 10 or 11 NFC teams that you'd want to bet, especially if you're getting the odds to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's, the entire NFC West. That's Dallas and Philadelphia having bounce back years. That's the Saints. That's everybody want to hop on Tampa Bay's train. That's the Packers and the Vikings. I mean, the NFC's depth, that's why the Chiefs are on top, because all they have to do is get to the AFC. Tom Brady's not even in the AFC anymore. It's not fair.
It's almost flipped though, man. It's like that used to be what we felt about the NFC, man. But it is crazy right now, the depth. I was looking at the FPI rankings, and you're right. I mean, where Dallas, even if you look at the Niners, the Saints, and the Cowboys, I mean, you feel really bad for Seattle and Philadelphia and even Tampa, who are all probably going to be wild card teams just because of the depth in the conference this year.
Well, it's a good thing there's more of them now, right? But that's the worst thing is let's say the Saints go 13-3 for the third year in a row. They're gonna have to play good teams starting right away in the first round of the NFC playoffs. There's no way around it.
He is Mike Triplett on Twitter, @MikeTriplett. Are you playing any Mad Libs during the coronavirus shutdown?
You know what? Mad Libs did make an appearance one day. It's not regular activity.
Okay.
I gotta admit, it's not a regular activity. But we can resurrect it the next time you want to. I've got time.
Mike, honestly, I'm really disappointed in myself that we didn't make a weekly Mad Libs bit with you a thing during this whole shutdown. And now we're actually kind of getting back on track to having sports. And it's like, can we really fit it in? But I think we always have time to fit in grammar. So maybe we make this happen.
Let me tell you what, look, I don't always come in here and preview things, but the timing is perfect for your audience in particular. One thing that I did take this downtime to do is sort of help orchestrate this project we're doing at ESPN that's going to roll out next week, which involves colleges and the pros, and a big moment for LSU. We assembled like all-star rosters from every conference and the three big teams, Ohio State, Alabama, and LSU, and then we had our panel vote on like which roster of current NFL players is the best. So we've got the conferences rolling out each of the first 4 days next week, and then next Friday will be the big showdown between LSU, Alabama, and Ohio State. And we had a lot of fun with it, so you got that to look forward to. We can nitpick that if you want.
I will very much look forward to that, and maybe we'll just flip-flop questions about that poll and a Mad Lib question.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, it's always a pleasure, man. We appreciate a couple of minutes. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Matt.